The oath in the sprawling city of New Alexandria, a modern American metropolis, Dr. Carolyn Mendez stood as one of the top cardiac surgeons at St. Haven General. With pristine credentials, unwavering confidence, and a commanding presence, she was respected and feared. But there was a darkness she kept buried deep, wrapped in dogma and pride, an unconscious bias born from the echoes of a flawed upbringing. Dr. Mendez didn't think she was racist, but she had her patterns, choosing white residents over others, giving quicker dismissals to black patients complaining of pain, and always having an excuse that sounded clinical. It wasn't overt. It was hidden in decisions, in tones, in coldness, until one evening, her world trembled. A code blue emergency hit the ER. A 29-year-old African-American man named Marcus R. Clark had suffered a severe arrhythmia and was rushed in, unconscious, by paramedics. The ER team stabilized him, but his heart needed immediate attention. They paged the top surgeon, Dr. Mendez. She arrived, glanced at the chart, and frowned. Another young black man, no insurance info on file. She sighed, muttered, "Stabilize and transfer to county," and turned away. The ER nurse, aghast, begged her to reconsider. But Dr. Mendez had already signed the transfer form. As the nurse reached for Marcus's belongings to gather identification for the county hospital, his wallet fell open. A thin card slipped out. Department of Justice Federal Agent Identification. The room froze. His name, Marcus R. Clark, Special Agent, Civil Rights Division. The air around Dr. Mendez shifted instantly. Her face went pale. She snatched the ID, stared at the seal, the badge number, the clearance level. This wasn't just any patient. This was a federal agent in the Civil Rights Division, one who investigated medical discrimination cases. One who was likely undercover, maybe even part of a current investigation. Dr. Mendez panicked. Her pulse raced. She ripped up the transfer form and barked at the staff to prep the OR. "Get me everything. Now," she ordered, her voice shaking with forced authority. The surgery was successful. Agent Clark remained unconscious for a few more hours. She stayed at his bedside, reviewing every detail, trying to convince herself she hadn't just made the worst mistake of her career or life. But then he woke. And he remembered everything. Part I, the confrontation. Marcus lay in the hospital bed, still weak, but alert. His eyes met hers, clear, sharp, calm. "Doctor," he said. "Thanks for the second chance," she fumbled. "I didn't realize who you were." "That's obvious," he said, voice steady. "You were ready to let me die." "No. I made a clinical judgment based on the—" He raised a hand, silencing her. "You made a biased decision. That's why I was here, to find out how often people like me are dismissed, denied, or neglected." "I saved you," she said, almost pleading. "No," Marcus replied. "You rescued yourself, not me." There was silence, thick, heavy. Then he added, "We've been watching this hospital. You were a name on a list." "But I wanted to be sure," she whispered. "Are you going to report me?" He looked at her long and hard. "I don't need to. You'll do that yourself if you have any humanity left." Part I, the oath. 2 months later, a press conference was held. St. Haven General had entered into a civil settlement with the Department of Justice. A new federal oversight program was being introduced. But the biggest shock came at the end. Dr. Carolyn Mendez stepped up to the microphone. "I am here today," she said, "not as a victim of false accusation, but as a surgeon who failed to uphold her oath. I was wrong. I allowed bias to cloud my judgment. I almost let a man die because of the color of his skin." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "This is my resignation, but it's also my beginning. I will dedicate the rest of my life to exposing and dismantling medical discrimination. Because the Hippocratic Oath isn't a promise to only the privileged, it's a vow to all." Marcus, standing in the back, nodded quietly and left before anyone saw the tears forming in his eyes. Epilogue months later, in a rural southern town, Dr. Caroline Mendez now works at a free clinic, serving patients who once would have been statistics in a system that failed them. And Marcus Clark? He continues his investigations, but sometimes, just sometimes, he checks in on that small clinic not to monitor, but to hope.